Deep in a Louisiana swamp, hidden under mud and murky water, sits 300 trillion cubic feet of something people didn't even know to look for. And it stayed secret for 100 years. Picture this. Generations of families lived their entire lives on top of this swamp, fishing it, farming near it. Some even called it worthless land, good for nothing but mosquitoes and gator sightings. Nobody had any idea what was sitting right beneath their boots. Then, 100 years later, someone finally drilled deep enough and pulled up numbers that seemed impossible. 300 trillion cubic feet, enough to power entire states for years. Hidden the entire time under one of the most overlooked, forgotten pieces of land in the country. Overnight, swamp that nobody wanted became some of the most fought-over ground in America. Companies raced in. Landowners who'd been broke their whole lives suddenly held the deed to a fortune. But here's the question nobody's answered yet. If it was down there for 100 years, why did it take this long for anyone to find it? And what else might still be hiding under swamps just like it? 300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas is a number so vast it easily loses its meaning. Even with today's massive industrial infrastructure, the scale of what lay beneath these quiet towns seems unbelievable. To make it real, consider this. The average American home uses about 64,000 cubic feet of gas a year. That means 300 trillion cubic feet is enough to heat every single household in the United States for generations. It is more than 10 times the entire country's annual energy consumption. Yet for a century, this massive reservoir remained untouched beneath the pine trees and sluggish bayous of North Louisiana, dismissed by many as low-value acreage. To understand how this wealth stayed buried, we have to look at the difference between what is down there and what we can actually bring to the surface. Geologists talk about gas in place, the total volume trapped inside the rock, which in this basin actually exceeds 500 trillion cubic feet. But gas in the rock is not gas in the pipeline. Technically recoverable resources, like the 343 trillion cubic feet the U.S. Geological Survey identified in the lower Bossier Formation, are what modern tools can theoretically extract. Proved reserves are the much smaller fraction that companies can drill and sell today at a profit. For decades, the Haynesville and Bossier formations were no secret to geologists. They knew the gas was there, but it was trapped more than 10,000 feet below the surface in an incredibly dense, low permeability mudstone. The rock was so tight that gas could not flow. Tapping into this resource was not a matter of luck. It was a complex puzzle of geology, technology, and economics. To see why it took 100 years to solve, we have to trace the moments when early wildcatters first struck oil in the region, only to leave the richest wealth behind. In northwest Louisiana, the surface of the earth told a story of quiet survival, not immense wealth. For generations, counties like DeSoto and Caddo Parish were defined by thick pine forests, slow-moving bayous, and family farms carved out of the mud. To the people who lived here, this land was simply home. In the small community of Gloucester, off Highway 5, the Mosley family worked a 200-acre parcel of this terrain. For over a century, their days were filled with the rhythm of agricultural life, harvesting timber, raising livestock, and fishing the quiet waters of the bayou. Dwight Mosley still recalls the rich sensory memories of that homestead. The scent of fresh cakes and cornbread drifting from the kitchen, the sounds of hogs and chickens, the hard work of slaughter and harvest. It was a self-sufficient existence, firmly rooted in the soil. To his grandfather, who patrolled the boundaries of the property with a rifle slung over his shoulder, the value of the land was measured in independence and family legacy, passed down through generations. Outside of the families who cherished these parcels, the rest of the world saw very little of value here. Local tax assessment rolls from the late 20th century routinely categorized these swampy acres as low-yield, marginal ground. In many public records, these low-lying areas were valued at a mere $15 to $30 an acre, often written off by outsiders as mosquito-infested wetlands of little use to anyone but local hunters and crawfish guides. There were no grand mansions or booming cities on this soil, just rural roads and quiet communities that felt entirely disconnected from the bustling energy capitals of Houston or New Orleans. This reputation as uneconomic ground persisted despite a long history of oil exploration in the region. In 1921, drillers struck oil near the town of Haynesville, triggering a minor rush. But those early wildcatters were hunting for shallow, conventional reservoirs, pockets of oil and gas easily reached by simple vertical wells. They drilled down a few thousand feet, hit their targets, and moved on. Over the next several decades, shallow exploratory wells continued to dot the countryside. These operations frequently hit the tight, dense mudstone lying far beneath their targets, but the tools of the era could not make it flow. To the oilmen of the mid-20th century, the low permeability shale was a useless barrier, a thick wall of rock that yielded nothing. Because the surface gave no hint of the high-pressure reservoir trapped more than 10,000 feet down, the region's reputation remained unchanged. It was still just the swamp, low value, hard to work, and seemingly barren of the energy that was fueling the rest of the nation. The barrier was the rock itself. Locked more than 2 miles beneath the Louisiana mud, the Haynesville Formation is a massive layer of Upper Jurassic mudstone. To early oilmen, this rock was a nightmare. Unlike conventional sandstone reservoirs, which act like porous sponges that easily let oil and gas flow to a well, this shale was incredibly tight and dense. Its permeability was practically zero, meaning the microscopic pathways inside the rock were too small for the trapped gas to escape on its own. At these depths, the extreme pressure and intense heat created hazardous environments that mid-century rotary tools simply could not handle. Early operators assumed that any gas trapped in shale was uneconomic to extract, labeling these formations as useless source rock rather than productive reservoirs. They believed that drilling into them was a waste of expensive steel and time. That perspective only began to shift with the advent of three-dimensional seismic imaging. Before this technology, geologists had to rely on basic gravity measurements and rough guesses from vertical drill logs to map what lay underground. Three-dimensional seismic offered a solution by sending sound waves into the earth and recording their echoes, giving engineers their first high-definition ultrasound of the planet's interior. This revealed the true thickness and structural details of the overpressured formation, proving that a colossal, untouched reservoir sat waiting just beneath the forest floor. In March 2008, a single drilling rig in DeSoto Parish changed the American energy map forever. Chesapeake Energy pushed its drill bit more than 10,000 feet straight down into the Louisiana mud. But instead of stopping when they hit the dense Upper Jurassic layer, the crew did something that had never been successfully attempted in this basin. They steered the drill 70 degrees, turning it completely sideways to run 4,000 feet horizontally, directly through the tight, gas-bearing shale. By drilling sideways, Chesapeake exposed a massive horizontal stretch of the reservoir rather than a narrow vertical slice. Then came the high-pressure completion. Engineers pumped millions of gallons of slick water fluids directly into the lateral pipe, using multi-stage hydraulic fracturing to force open microscopic cracks in the stone. They packed these newly created fractures with thousands of tons of sand to keep them propped open under the crushing overburden pressure of the subterranean earth. The results of this first commercial horizontal well were staggering. The trapped gas surged out of the ground at over 10 million cubic feet per day. A pioneer well that cost $3 million to build was suddenly on track to recover over 2 billion cubic feet of natural gas. Almost overnight, land that banks and local tax assessors had dismissed as worthless, $30 an acre swamp, became the most sought-after ground in the country. Chesapeake's success was the main turning point, proving to the entire energy industry that the Haynesville's massive resource could actually be produced at an industrial scale. The silent, buried wealth of the Louisiana swamp was at last freed, triggering a chaotic corporate scramble for leasing rights that would transform rural family farms into multi-million-dollar estates practically overnight. By the summer of 2008, the quiet pine forests of DeSoto Parish had become a high-stakes auction house. Energy companies flooded rural roads, racing to lock down mineral leases before their competitors could. Landowners who had spent decades struggling to pay taxes on what they thought was worthless swamp were suddenly receiving offers they could barely comprehend. In Gloucester, families like the Mosleys, who had farmed and timbered their 200-acre homestead for a century, found themselves holding contracts worth more than their ancestors could have earned in a lifetime. On July 11, 2008, the scale of this wealth became public. DeSoto Parish Police Jury Chairman Vernon Thomas stood before a stunned community to announce a single lease of just 1,000 acres near the Mansfield Airport. The price was $28 million, paid out in two massive $14 million checks. Thomas described the mood as pure elation, a sudden, dizzying challenge of learning how to manage that much money. Signing bonuses across the region skyrocketed from a few $100s an acre to an average of over $13,000, with some desperate operators bidding as high as $30,000. Down on the ground, the cash flowed immediately into the local economy. Long empty motels filled with landmen and drilling crews, diners ran out of food by noon, and hardware stores did a year's worth of business in a month. For a community long ignored by Wall Street and Washington, the swamp was no longer a liability. It was an overnight fortune. In Louisiana, buying a piece of land does not mean you own what lies miles beneath it. This is the reality of split estates, where surface ownership and mineral rights exist as two completely separate legal properties. As the checks began to clear, families who had held their farms for generations opened their mailboxes to find title challenges instead of royalty payments. Tangled histories of deeds, dating back to the Great Depression, revealed that long-forgotten timber companies or speculative syndicates had severed and kept the subsurface rights decades ago. Landowners who believed they had won the geological lottery were suddenly caught in a paper war of historic records, wills, and court dockets. The battle for control reached the federal courts in 2016, when Blackstone Minerals filed a major lawsuit against Chesapeake, Louisiana. Led by attorney Daniel Charest, the litigation exposed the dark underbelly of the boom, centering on allegations of underpaid royalties and excessive deduction fees. The case dragged on for a decade before ending in a quiet, multi-million-dollar private settlement in 2026. For corporations and massive mineral firms, it was a high-stakes chess game over contract language and asset portfolios. But for local families sitting on the surface, the legal battle meant their dreams of generational wealth were frozen in a web of fine print, proving that the real power in the swamp belonged not to the one who owned the soil, but to the one who held the deed to the deep. To understand the full cost of this energy boom, one must look at the surface of the swamp itself. Before the drilling rigs arrived, these northwest Louisiana wetlands were a sanctuary of quiet bayous, home to generations of sport fishing guides, alligator hunters, and families who lived off the water. But as the industrial scramble intensified, the countryside fractured. Energy companies cleared paths to build gravel roads, concrete drill pads, and thousands of miles of gathering pipelines. According to a 2011 study by environmental engineer Russell Krauss, these operations impacted roughly 1,400 acres of sensitive wetlands, cutting off natural water flows. Beneath the surface, every single well devoured 2 to 4 million gallons of fresh water, which returned as highly saline brine that had to be hauled away or injected directly underground. Overhead, modern sensors began tracking an invisible threat, methane, escaping at an estimated national average of 1.5%. While the boom brought jobs and wealth, it left behind fragmented wetlands and a permanent change to the character of the land. The story of Northwest Louisiana is not an isolated event. It is a blueprint for the rest of the nation. For 100 years, the inability to see beneath the mud kept a massive treasury locked away. These hidden energy vaults remain untouched simply because our eyes cannot yet penetrate the stone. Today, advanced technologies are rewriting the geological maps of the entire United States. Modern wide-azimuth seismic surveys, drone-based radar, and machine learning algorithms map the subterranean Earth with sharp precision, revealing complex structures that conventional tools completely missed. This technological leap has turned eyes toward other overlooked fields. Far beneath the southern marshes of Mississippi and Alabama lies the Tuscaloosa Marine Shale, another high-pressure, organic-rich reservoir buried miles down under swampy terrain. Further north, the Fayetteville Shale across Arkansas and Oklahoma presents similar untested frontiers. As these advanced subsurface mapping systems improve, they force a difficult national debate, balancing our appetite for domestic energy against the rights of property owners and the duty of environmental stewardship. The revelation of the Haynesville raises a haunting question. How many other American regions, currently dismissed as worthless, are sitting on top of the next great energy boom? Today, the heavy machinery has quieted, but the lesson remains. The ground we dismiss as worthless today is often the treasure of tomorrow. Millions of us walk over unseen fortunes every single day, completely unaware. The next great American discovery is already waiting in the dark. What do you think is still hidden out there? Share your thoughts below.